Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about fight or flight, vegan fight or flight, and cortisol. Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Cindy Zaffis. I am a chiropractor. I also have a diplomate in addictionology and compulsive disorders. So today we're going to talk about how fight or flight works with cortisol. So the reason why I started in on this whole journey with fight or flight is in 2001, I first got my certification in addictionology and compulsive disorders. And I was telling my coach about it, and I'd been a chiropractor for about 7 years. And so she congratulated me, congratulations. And then what happened was she said, listen, my friend, I have a number of friends that are in menopause, and they're having problems with alcohol, they're having to take antidepressants, they're taking sleep meds, they're having all these issues. And she said, can you help them? What can you do for them? And I thought about it, and I'm like, well, absolutely nothing, at this point. So the things that I had learned did not address a lot of the hormonal issues. And at that time, a lot of times in 2001, you would go in with an addiction, and then at the end you would be on a prescription medication, and sometimes that prescription would be more addictive than the supplement that you entered into the addiction clinic with. So there was really no solution for menopause and addiction. So I actually, I took a lot of classes in my undergrad for computer science and engineering, and so we learned design development. And I decided to develop protocols for menopause and addiction. So that's what I did. I took a ton of classes, and at the very beginning, I remember thinking, there's something going on with the nervous system, and I didn't know what it was. I knew there was something was up, but I couldn't quite get my, finger on it. And I thought, well, the only thing I can do is just take a bunch of classes. So that's what I did. I took a ton of classes. And a couple years later, I learned about sympathetic dominance, and then I realized, oh my gosh, that was what I was trying to figure out. So sympathetic dominance, so when your autonomic system it can be either in a fight or flight sympathetic, or it can be in a parasympathetic healing rest mode. And if it's in a sympathetic fight or flight dominant mode, it really affects the entire body. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so we're gonna talk about how fight or flight affects cortisol. So if you're in a predominantly fight or flight mode, or what's called sympathetic dominance, you're in an emergency mode, and you can absolutely be in that in a very chronic way for days and days or years and years. Okay. And so what that does is very, very stressful on the body, because basically you're in an emergency mode. A lot of times what will happen is the blood will shunt out of the digestion into the major muscles, so that you can run or fight. Your mind becomes very active, because in that mode you have to make decisions very quickly, right? So it's a full body phenomena, and it's very stressful on the body. Your body is not designed to stay in an emergency mode or a fight or flight dominance. It's not designed for that. So basically, what happens is, being in that emergency mode, it very much exhausts your adrenals. Your adrenal glands produce cortisol, and then when the adrenals get exhausted, then you get these abnormal cortisol patterns. Okay, so basically we'll go over the patterns with you. So cortisol is energy, literally. So in the morning, this pattern is a healthy pattern. You have a little bit of a dip at 3 a.m. and then you wake up in the morning and your cortisol's high. That's good. And it goes down a little bit, and then it really dips down so that you go to sleep. You're able to go to sleep at night. Okay, but if you're in a fight or flight mode, or your adrenals are exhausted, or in many cases it's both, you're in fight or flight and your adrenals are exhausted, then you go into this pattern. This is an adrenal fatigue pattern. So you have a bigger dip of cortisol at 3 a.m. So that can actually wake you up. And then what happens is, in the morning you have low cortisol, and you don't want that, because you want cortisol to be high in the morning for energy. But what happens when your adrenals are exhausted, the cortisol's low and then gradually goes high, and then at nighttime you have lots of energy. So that's kind of like a second wind. And some people think that that's their personality, like they're a night owl, right? But really, it's actually these cortisol patterns, okay? The third pattern is just extreme adrenal fatigue. So you get this big dip of cortisol at 3 a.m., so that can wake you up. And then in the morning, you have low cortisol, so you don't have energy, right? And then your adrenals are so exhausted, they can't actually even produce the cortisol anymore. So that's extreme exhaustion. Now, not everybody that has adrenal exhaustion is in fight or flight, but I've been testing people. I do testing in my office, and I would say, over the last 15 years or more, for me, I'm in Northern California, and we had the Tubbs Fire 2017, which is very dramatic incident. It was a very sudden fire that took over, and I would say before that happened, maybe 60% of my patients that walked in the door were in fight or flight, and after, I would say at least 90 or more percent of my patients walked in the door in that sympathetic dominance, fight or flight mode. So what do you do about that? How do you work with that? There's 3 steps. Okay, so the first step is to get out of the fight or flight mode. Now we use a really great supplement in our office. It's a Health Resolutions Treatments Center brain formula that works really well, and we've treated hundreds of people with that. Now, the autonomic system is a very specific part of the body, and so you have parasympathetic and sympathetic. And when you're trying to move the nervous system from sympathetic, the autonomic system, from sympathetic to parasympathetic, unfortunately sedatives don't work. So our formula is not a sedative. It's very much, it's a very special formula. And so, like cannabis and CBD oil, I know a lot of people are big fans of that, but that's more of a sedative, so it does not reset the autonomic system. It does not shift, sympathetic to parasympathetic. I think if it did do that, I think a lot less people would be in the fight or flight mode. So I'm just not seeing that it does that. And the natural sedative herbs, other ones also do not as well. So that's what I'm seeing. Now, one thing you can do, we do have a quiz down below if you want to test to see if you're in fight or flight, kind of a chronic fight or flight. You can take that quiz, and it's got additional information for you. So that would be a great thing to do. But in order to address this, so first get the brain out of fight or flight, the autonomic system out of a sympathetic dominance. Number 2 is you want to support the adrenals. So adrenal glands are they handle all kinds of stress, chemical stress, toxic stress, emotional stress, temperature stress, all kinds of stress, emotional, everything. So what happens is a lot of times we'll look for nutritional support for people, and everybody's different. So everybody goes on different formulas based on what they need. And then the third step is we've got to reset these cortisol patterns, right? So what we're doing is, let's say this person right here, this is a typical, I treat this, lots of times. So what we want to do is bring the cortisol down, and then at night, and bring the cortisol up during the day in the morning. And you pretty much have to get the nervous system out of that sympathetic dominance. So I come from, more of an engineering background, and for me, I'm a big component of correcting function, because I think that, for instance, if you don't get the brain out of sympathetic, you're going to have to deal with this syndrome ongoingly, to your grave, right? So why not just correct the issue, resolve the biological issues, and then have good function, basically. So that's the philosophy that I really look at. So I'm going to show you a case study or testimonial. Now, this is a patient who is in this stage right here, which is really super common. I see this a lot. So she'll be saying, oh, I just have all this energy, I can't go to sleep at night, but then when I wake up, I can barely get up in the morning. Okay, so that's this phase right here. So I'm going to show you that testimonial, and she'll just talk a little bit about how we were able to resolve that for her.
Okay, so tell me what your symptoms were for sleeping before you came into the office.
I've always been a night owl, and I wouldn't be able to get to sleep till 2, 3, sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning. It was really common for me to be up at 4 o'clock just wishing I could sleep. And it didn't matter how many hours I slept. I couldn't wake up in the morning. It was just hours of just dragging till I felt like I could pretend to be awake. So it was, going to bed was very difficult, but getting up was also difficult, and it didn't seem to matter how many hours I slept.
Okay. And then, so it took a little bit of time, but we did work on the sleep issue. And then just tell me what happened after we worked on it for a while.
Both sides of sleep definitely improved. I now am able to go to sleep much easier. I usually fall asleep closer to midnight. Actually start getting tired at 10. I never really felt the getting tired previously. So I actually get tired and can get to sleep, and I wake up much faster. Within an hour or so, I'm fully awake and capable of doing whatever I need to do that day.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you are sleeping a lot better.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I think what we did with you, we did some just supplements, mostly supplements for the sleep. So, okay. And if you had to do it over again, would you do the treatment over again, or?
Absolutely, I would do the treatment over again. It's completely changed my energy levels throughout the day, and even just, it's really nice to feel tired at the end of the day and be like, I want to go to sleep. I don't remember having that for well over a decade.
Oh, okay, so you're just so amped up before. Okay.
And then you'd look at the clock, it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, I should probably be going to sleep sometime soon, and you just wouldn't be tired.
Yeah. And then would you say it was a relatively easy treatment to do? I mean...
Absolutely an easy treatment to do.
Okay, so it's easy to implement. So, all right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, so this is a summary of how fight or flight can affect adrenals and then can affect cortisol. Again, I just want to remind you, we have a really great questionnaire on, are you in a kind of a chronic fight or flight sympathetic dominance mode? It's a great questionnaire. So, you can learn some other additional information as well. So we really encourage you to you just click on the link below. I do hope that you got a lot out of this, and thank you for watching, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you.